When there's a drink in one hand and notes in the other, you know she's serious. I wanted to start a little series on my channel. I don't really know what to call it, but all I know is that all of the videos within this series are going to have a similar theme of comparing expectations to realities. We don't ever commit or decide on something without having some form of expectation about how it's going to pan out in the first place, of course. So I figured it would be a nice way to kind of offer advice, kind of like having like a heart-to-heart with someone. Maybe even if it's nothing to do with your life and it's nothing to do with what you really care about, it might be interesting to apply some of these things to other situations going on in your life, pre-judgment about how something's going to pan out, and maybe from watching these videos it might kind of give you a little bit of introspective. There's so many different places I can take this series, so I hope you like the idea, and I hope you enjoy the first one. The first one's going to be about self-employment, which is something I've wanted to talk about on my channel for so long because it's such a massive part of who I am, what I do, what I experience in my day-to-day routine, and I would say that I've learned quite a lot, and I'd like to think at least a little bit of knowledge to give to people if they want it. This is hot chocolate. Self-employment will be an easier way to deal with my anxiety because there is a lot less social interaction. Ooh, self-employment is a good way to kind of be on your own, work on your own, not have other people kind of influence how your day goes, because I'm an empath as well and I do soak in other people's emotions, and I always felt like dealing with people really affected how productive I was, and if my day was good, like I would take in other people's emotions and kind of just mistake them for my own, and I would just soak people up like a sponge. Depending on what you do, you obviously don't have to see many people face to face, you don't have to make too many phone calls, you know, most work might be over email, depending on what you do, of course, but I think a lot of people who generally aren't people very much of a people person kind of might see self-employment as the luxury. I discovered that the anxiety just took itself into another form. Running your own ship and working for yourself and standing on your own 2 feet is one of the most anxiety-ridden things you could possibly do, and I didn't ever expect that at the beginning. You know, it seems like a dream, it seems almost too good to be true that you can kind of do whatever you want whenever you want, and you don't have to answer for anyone else, no one has to tell you what to do. It almost sounds bliss, which it is. Every expectation I'm going to give in this video obviously comes with a sense of truth in it, but there is always kind of like a sacrifice, really. There is so many parts of being self-employed that keep me up at night and raise my anxiety levels to a whole new space. Starting off with just money flow, for instance. I don't have that security blanket of knowing exactly what I'm going to be earning that month. I don't know if the next month's going to be any good. I don't know if anything's going to break, if any equipment's going to fail on me. I don't know whether I'm going to have to fork out some random cash next week because something doesn't work in the way I expect it to, and then I'm going to be low on funds for rent and then bills. And everyone saves, everyone plans, and everyone like has an idea of what they want to happen in the future. But for me, being self-employed always seems so much in the moment. Like, I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with now, I'm trying to earn the amount of money that I'm earning now, and I'm so focused in just like keeping up what I've got going now. Unless you are in a very abundant business and you're going fine and it's amazing, then you don't really have to stress so much about everything going on now. But I feel like when you're grinding to work for yourself in the moment, you just kind of lose touch of what is maybe to come, and that's not a very good way to go about business. I'm aware of that, but it is very easy to get swept away. And also, a lot of people have kind of security when they work for other people, like they have a pension pot. I have to sort out my own taxes, and I remember when I was trying to like rack my brains around taxes, how anxious I was about the whole thing. I couldn't sleep for so long because I was just like overwhelmed by it all and confused by it all, and I really wanted to do it myself. I didn't want to have to get an accountant for it. I was trying to be really independent because as a self-employed person, I think you kind of get in this mindset where you're like, I have to do everything myself. I actually ended up failing a uni module because I was so stressed about sorting out my taxes in that month. Which is so dumb. As much as I can save as the next person, my position as a self-employed person can also make my mortgage harder to get. Like actually buying somewhere is sometimes a little bit harder when you're self-employed because you're not taken as seriously and you need a lot of proof to show that you're going to continue doing well. I know a few people that were earning like double their partner as a self-employed person, but because they're self-employed, they didn't actually get taken seriously, and you know, even if you show them 3 years worth of earnings, they still get a little bit funny because it's just not a stable thing, which blows my mind because it is as stable as anything else if you really think about it, because anyone can get fired. Like my boyfriend can get fired tomorrow and they could give him 1 month, right? And the thing is with self-employed people, depending on what you do, actually there's sometimes a lot more stability for us, because if one of our flows of income shut down, we can kind of fall back onto others, whereas if you're employed by someone and they fire you, they fire you. But or they do get it and you kind of like get taken the mick of because you look like a crazy person trying to take pictures in public or taking videos in public, which is first world problems, I know, but when you're an anxious person, that can be hell on earth. Also, it is scary to think with self-employment stuff, you worry about your references. On my CV, I'm not going to have anyone to reference me, and I'm also not going to have, like, maybe in some people's eyes, not a truly legitimate job, which I think is bonkers because I do feel like I've got a lot of skill sets from what I do, but I know a lot of people won't see it that way. So yeah, obviously socially there are a lot less people I have to deal with, but that doesn't mean running your own ship means you deal with like no people. I mean, it's a business, and a lot of the time a business is a service, so you have to deal with people of some sort, especially if it's just you in the team on your own. You've got to do all of these things. You've got to deal with so many people, whether that's accountants, whether that's customers, whether that's like going to events and networking, making phone calls at the bank, or just products that you buy for the business. Being self-employed is probably one of the, well, no, it probably is the scariest thing I've ever done. You can make as much money as you want because you have the ability to earn more. The world is your oyster. You can literally just skyrocket as high as you want and you can make the millions. And being self-employed does mean there's a higher chance of you becoming a millionaire because sure, you're in control. The sky is the limit and you're just gonna like do really well and it's gonna be amazing. But a lot of the time self-employed people kind of just try so hard to get by on a wage that would be perfectly fine as a normal employed person. Like, I'm completely comparing myself to other people around me all the time. Like, I'm looking at different professions, I'm looking at different experiences, I'm looking at different ages of people, and I'm asking them what they earn and how much they work and what hours they put in, because it's so hard to figure out whether what I'm doing is worth the money I'm getting for it and like the enjoyment the enjoyment I get out of it. Like, well, I don't know if other people will agree with this, but I find it difficult to know whether I'm doing well. Like, I don't get that reassurance from anyone to say like, you hit good targets this month. Like, I need to ask other people what like a good income is, because this is actually my first job, so like I'm still kind of trying to work out what my goals are and what my aims are. And I think it's hard to know what you're aiming for and when to push yourself when you're in charge of your income and you're not actually as in charge as you kind of set out to think you would be. You know, like, it would be lovely to say I'm going to earn 3 grand this month, but whether that actually happens isn't always down to you. But for now, this expectation I honestly find myself just trying to maintain a reasonable income rather than reaching for the sky. Maybe that's just bad business, but Everything is in your control and you have the power to make your business the way you want it to be. Did that make sense? Essentially true. Obviously, this is one of the main reasons why people turn to self-employment. There is so much control. There is so much freedom. You can literally make whatever you want and turn it into a business. And if your specific idea and your specific enjoyment and your passion and your talent works, then amazing, and you've hit the jackpot, and that's incredible, and you are very lucky, and there's not a lot of people that can experience that. So there is so much truth in that. But personally, I believe slowly over time, demand starts to take over. And I think it's very hard to run a business for a long time, doing something that you love consistently every single day that sells. I think over time, customers' desires, their wants, their needs change, and so will yours. And I think it is a nice idea to think, oh, you know, I'm going to change things up a little bit, like I'm going to add this to my shop, I'm going to change this with all the clothing items, and you're going to be doing that because you have control of how your business goes and you want it to go that way, but you're still essentially being controlled by your current customer audience or the people that you are trying to bring in. You know, there is still that sense of supply and demand. Like, a lot of business people will probably agree in saying that you build an empire, you build up your customer, client base or whatever, and over time you kind of do have to like morph what you supply around what people seem to want. So even if I was to make so many different things in my little shop and I gathered that everyone seemed to like to buy the purple version, I would obviously have to make more purple versions because that makes business sense. Now, what if I didn't like making the purple version of the products that everyone was buying? That would become a problem, and then you would have this lack of control. The feeling of doing what you want to do would kind of go down, and I feel like with art and content creators on YouTube, that is the case too. Current trends are always very, very particular, and it kind of influences the content everybody makes because they know it's going to do well. There is so much freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, because you can. I could have spent the 3 years I've been full-time YouTubing in a schedule that works for me. I have my own little breaks when I want them. I can go out partying when I want. I can come back and get back straight to work. I can literally do whatever I want. If I am very, very, very disciplined, because if not, you fall down a very, very, very slippery slope and you end up not working anywhere near as much as you should, not putting the effort in that you really should, and essentially earning less money. Being a night owl can affect my mental health a lot of the time. So if I'm not seeing a lot of daytime, if I'm not seeing a lot of day hours, then I slip into a state of kind of, not depression, I've never been depressed, but I do get low, and you can't be someone who's creative and makes content due to that creativity during a slump. Like, you just won't make any content because you won't feel like doing it. I feel like a lot of self-employed people prefer and will choose actually to work a normal working schedule, write their own hours down on a bit of paper. Like they discipline themselves by giving themselves a schedule as their boss or manager would in just a general job, or they try and work alongside their partner's hours, which I do, which will really help if you have your own family or if you just want to see your partner without being underneath all this paperwork in the evenings. And also, it's just the way society works as well. Imagine doing something in your own way, on your own routine, when the rest of society works in a 9 to 5 sort of standard. As much as I hate it, as much as I do feel like everyone should have the freedom to tell their boss, I work best at 4 p.m. to 11 p.m, so give me those hours. I wish that was the way it could be, because you can look into studies, but they have proven that we all work better in our own times and stuff. Like everybody has their best working hours anyway. Because of society, it does make things a lot easier if you just kind of go with the rhythm of the world. And that can also be helpful because you might need to make phone calls, you might need to send and receive emails pretty quickly and instantly, or do some video calls, or do like visit the post office or go to the bank in normal people working hours. You're not going to be able to do that if you work through the night. I'm not going to be able to make phone calls with someone if I can't get up in the morning and do that. Also, the idea of working from the bedroom, in bed. People call it the soft office. Sounds amazing, and obviously at times it's incredible. It's so good that you can just sort of like slump your laptop on your lap and you're so snug, especially when it's raining outside, and you can just get all cozy, and that's really, really good. But doing that every single day isn't practical. It won't kind of stimulate your brain very well. You won't get the best ideas. You're not gonna feel the greatest. It can just get a little bit depressing over time, which does sound like a first world problem because every other Tom, Dick and Harry has to leave the house at 7 in the morning, boo-hoo. But you need that fresh air, you need that feeling of renewal, because otherwise you're just going to go stale sat in bed trying to get a business running in your pyjamas. Sounds great, but honestly over time it's not gonna do you any favors, I feel. A lot of people need to be disciplined by their own schedule, because otherwise they're constantly just gonna be in a state of like, am I working? Am I enjoying myself? Like, you've got to separate the lines between home and work life, and that's actually very, very hard. A lot of people like to buy or rent a place that has 2 bedrooms, so you can use one of the bedrooms as an office. That's a really good way to separate yourself from the home and see this as work time, because it's so easy to say, I'm just watching a bit of TV and then I'll do some emails at the same time. Next minute you're distracted by what they're talking about on the TV, so then you start tweeting about it, and next minute you're talking to your Aunt Brenda, and like the lines just start merging and it becomes so difficult. I know a lot of people like to put work clothes on. They have a shower in the morning and they tell themselves as soon as they shower, that's when work mode starts. Sorry, no, after the shower, not in the shower. That would be odd. You can have so many holidays and take so much time off because you can. If you just remove the fact that your boss would kick your ass, I could say the same to you guys. I could literally say to you, you don't have to go in, like, you can just stay in bed if you want. Obviously, your boss isn't going to let that happen, but taking that out of the equation, you're just going to turn around and say to me, well, of course I can, but I got this job in the first place because I needed the money. It's the exact same thing. Like, as much as I'd want to sit on my bum and go on holiday to Barbados, I'm not going to earn any money to do the holiday in the first place if I'm not working, or I'm not going to be able to earn money for bills. Like, I'm going to be a very sad little sausage next month when I look at my bank account and I'm like, hold on, where's my money? But like everyone else, obviously you're going to give yourself the time when you want it, and that is the beauty. So you say, okay, when am I going to pick my 2 weeks? And then you book your holiday abroad, you give yourself that time on the calendar, and you're like, yay! And obviously that's amazing. You can literally pick and choose when you have your time off, if you do want time off. When you are on the holiday, when you are on the break, when you are having time off, I don't know whether other self-employed people agree with this or not, but oh my holy hell, I cannot stop thinking about work, and that comes with that inability to detach home from work. The minute you become self-employed, you are kind of dedicating your world to that job. I feel like it's a bigger commitment. I don't know if people will find that kind of like controversial, I think, but the lines honestly just blur. And when I'm on holiday, I'm just literally, it sounds awful and I hate that I've become this person, because as a kid I used to see people like this and I'd be like, God, I can't stand workaholics. But honestly, I've become that person who's sat there and they're like, I could be doing other things, like I could be making money right now. And I think that's like a term that rules your life once you become self-employed, like the idea of time equaling money. That is something that I think a lot now. I never used to see time as money.
I've really sat here for 2 hours watching Netflix I could literally have done something beneficial that's going to help me get by next month.
The only time I can go on holiday and not stress about work is when the previous 3 months before I went on holiday were really successful months and things went right and my income was pretty high. That's the time I can kind of chill. But if things were a little bit rocky and they aren't that way, then I'm just stressing the whole time, thinking I should be, making up for that decrease in sales. Taking the plunge and going full-time self-employed will just mean more hours equals more money. This is kind of contradicting because I literally just said that time equals money will become your motto, but the most frustrating thing you will also discover is that time does not always
equal money.
It's such a stressful world over here. We ain't promised anything. When you're clocking in your hours for the week, you're not going to be promised a single little sausage. It's all down to you whether the hours you're putting in is worth what you're getting out. And that is all part of your business plan. Bad business management is putting in so many hours and literally getting nothing out of it. You need to assess that exchange, work out what you're putting in, what you're getting out, what you can do to lower that amount of hours you're putting in and increase that amount you're getting out. That being said, even a well thought out business plan promises nothing. Even a big chunk of business investments promise nothing. You can have all these fancy ideas and you can make this fancy forecast on how things should logically pan out. I'm sure there are plenty of websites that exist out there of a number of businesses that essentially have failed over time, which are the biggest businesses in the world, which I think is it's really important for you guys to support the people that you love, like the artists, the creators. I'm not just saying that for my sake, but for anyone that you buy products from, for any artist that you appreciate their artwork, because you don't know what they're going through, you don't know how much they're struggling, and if they are having to maybe consider redundancy, you don't know how good a business is actually doing. And if it's a small business and maybe it's a startup business, they're probably not doing very well and they're making a lot of risks at this point. So support them when you can, because you never know what's around the corner and it's really sad.
Which is why you should support them on Patreon or donate to their PayPals. Hey!
Self-employment is basically working less and enjoying more. I've spoken to a ton of different other self-employed people and bonded over this self-employment life, and one of the main things that always kind of comes through and everyone always brings up without me even mentioning it first is the amount of hours people put in. And I feel like with self-employment life, because there are no promises behind the hours you put in, you naturally put a lot more hours in because you don't know what you're going to get out of it. I feel like a lot of people kind of overcompensate because of the fact also they don't have things like sick pay, they don't have any benefits behind their business, so you kind of save up as much as possible in case of things happening too. So if equipment was to break, your shop was to get broken into, I don't know, but if something was to go wrong, you also need that backup as well, so you put more hours in. You also don't know whether there's going to be a dry spell during the year, so you need to be ready for that as well. A lot of the people I've spoken to also say they work hands down more hours than their employed friends. They earn less too, and it's about having that balance of doing something that you really enjoy and understanding that you enjoy it so much it's worth earning a little bit less than someone who's doing something they don't really enjoy but earning more money for it. I ask myself this question every day. I'm like, should I just do something that's a lot less stressful, a lot less anxiety ridden? Also, as well as that, I am actually petrified of working less. Even if I did, like I said, everything would remind me of work anyway. Like if I was putting in less hours because I was trying to look after myself and look after my mental health and all of that, I would go somewhere and see something and be like, oh my gosh, that reminds me of my job and I should be doing that. And with the more enjoyment aspect of that as well, I feel like obviously a lot of people go into self-employment because they find something that they really enjoy. Eventually, I think the real test over time is when things come into the equation that isn't so much enjoyable. Like, what they don't assume in the early days is going to be something they have to think about. Tax and number crunching and stuff is not really my thing. I don't really enjoy it. I mean, I like the idea of seeing how well I've done over time and how things have improved, but the actual like act of doing the numbers behind a business is never something that I've enjoyed. Banks and stuff won't take you seriously if you want a loan for a business, if you don't have like a 4-year forecast. Pitching and doing presentations for things, if you want, like if you've got a product idea about something, or customer service. Like, if you are trying to be self-employed because you just want to create products and create art, and that bit sounds great, you don't really think about the fact you also have to act as someone who deals with customers on a daily basis. You might even want to get into self-employment because you're trying to get away from that kind of world. If you've always been someone who's been employed by someone to serve and help customers, you still essentially have to do that as a self-employed person. Next minute you realise you've got all these different balls in your court that you're having to deal with, and they don't all involve things that you really enjoy. It might be, there's always going to be a small part, I think, of your business which you kind of end up loathing, which you didn't really think about in the first place doing. So obviously you can employ people to do these things for you, and you can have someone else who's more experienced to take on board all of those kind of things. But a lot of people who are just starting out as a small business generally want to do everything themselves because they don't want to spend the money, and it's hard enough as it is to survive as a small business, so you don't really want to be giving away too much of what you're earning because your profits are so valuable. If you don't enjoy market research, that comes hand in hand with self-employment. A lot of research basically needs to be done. That could be about things like copyright as well, what you're entitled to as a creator. And I was so overwhelmed by so many different things that I had no idea you had to consider. I kind of got put off by it all. Factors such as whether you ship to certain countries and stuff, like some countries have like different regulations. I don't know. Basically, as time goes on, more and more ball aches kind of happen. Nothing can go wrong when you monetize your hobbies. I think it's really amazing if you're able to take what you love and turn it into a business, monetize some of your hobbies, even if that means part-time. But this is something I've recently found myself bad with. I guess it's because I'm a business person, I suppose, so I see something that I can do that maybe other people can't, and straight away I'm like, ooh, I can make this into a profitable business. I wanted to take up something that was away from digital screens because I was getting really fed up about the fact all my hobbies were on a computer. So I went into tarot reading more so, because I felt like it would just be me and my cards, and it would be fun, and I could learn, and it would be really cool talent and skill, and I could tell friends and family, it'd be cool. Next minute I just like start falling into this trap of like, ooh, I could do readings for people. I do enjoy it, I love it, I wouldn't say that's a regret in any way, but now I'm left in the same situation where I don't have a hobby that's like away from a screen, and just because I enjoy it. Also, there's a lot of like kind of repetitive stuff when it comes to, well, what I do anyway. This isn't for every self-employed person, but if I really enjoy baking, for example, and I make baking videos and then I spend like 4 hours of my evening editing me baking, I'm just gonna start getting frustrated by seeing so much of that, and it will probably like take over my life a little bit, and I'm gonna naturally turn off a little bit and disassociate myself to that hobby because of how much it's surrounding me in my life. Playing with fire a little bit if you're trying to monetize something that you love so much, because you might end up resenting it a little. You start linking that hobby to work. Being at home all the time must be so cool. As a Cancer, being at home is one of my favorite things to do. No, home is very important to me, and obviously there is so much truth in this. It's amazing to be in your own space, have your own privacy, not have other people pestering you and being annoying, and being in your element. Honestly, it's an incredible feeling, but that only goes when you feel content about your place. I feel like a lot of people have the luxury of sort of leaving the home space to go to work as a little bit of an escape, change of scenery, especially if you have a family, like that kind of, I don't know, this is gonna sound a little bit bad, but I know so many people that have said sometimes it's nice to get away from the madness at home, even though work itself has its moments and that, but you're kind of in that bubble constantly. And the amount of times I have like lost my head because I can't work in a messy environment, and if it's messy I'm gonna get stressy and I'm not gonna be able to do as much, and then I end up like spending 2 hours of my work schedule doing washing up or cleaning around the flat or whatever. So it's good because you're in your element, you're in your bubble, but then your work is very influenced by what your bubble looks like. There can be much worse cases if you're someone who literally doesn't like the space that they live in. If you don't like the location you live in or like the people you live with, you might have a really small place and it's making work really hard. You might just rent out a room. Those are all of the things I could think of. There's probably more, and I'm going to kick myself when I watch this back, so I'm going to be like, I could have mentioned that, I could have mentioned this. If you would like me to do one on being a YouTuber, then let me know in the comment section below. Give me some good recommendations, or just let me know whether you like this series. Join me on social media such as Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. I also have tarot readings if you want to book one. Use the email down there in my video description. Thank you very much. Make sure also you subscribe to my channel to be notified every time I make a brand new video, because I make them every 2 to 3 days, and click the bell too, because you actually get notified if you do that. Thank you, have a lovely day, and au revoir.